Picture a $13 billion Ford-class aircraft carrier. 5,000 crew members, 90 aircraft. The most advanced floating city humanity has ever built. Now picture a $1,000 consumer drone, bought off a shelf in any electronics store, carrying 2 kilograms of explosives. Here's the problem that keeps naval commanders awake at night. You cannot fire a $2 million missile at a $1,000 drone. The math doesn't work. But here's what's worse. Swarms don't attack with one drone. They attack with 50, 100, all at once from different directions, flying 3 meters above the waves where radar struggles to see them. So how does the US Navy actually stop them before they get close? The answer isn't what most people think. There are no dramatic missile launches, no Gatling guns spinning in slow motion. What protects these ships is something most people will never see. A layered defense system that combines invisible sensors, artificial intelligence making decisions in milliseconds, and weapons that sound like science fiction but are operational right now. This is the story of how the Navy solved the asymmetry problem, how billion-dollar ships survive $1,000 threats, and why the battle is won long before the first drone even launches. Let's start with the nightmare scenario that changed everything. It's the Red Sea 2024. A commercial vessel detects multiple small contacts on radar. By the time the crew realizes they're not seabirds, it's too late. 7 drones, each costing less than what the ship's captain makes in a month, strike in coordinated waves. The vessel survives. But barely. The attackers, they spent maybe $10,000 total. This is the asymmetry trap, and it's rewriting the rules of naval warfare. For decades, the US Navy built defenses around a simple assumption. Threats would be expensive. Enemy ships, submarines, advanced missiles, things that cost millions to build and required sophisticated militaries to operate. The defense was simple. Match expense with expense. A $2 million SM-2 missile stops a $10 million anti-ship missile. The math worked. Then drones changed everything. Suddenly, adversaries could launch attacks using technology you could buy on Amazon. Consumer quadcopters, off-the-shelf components, hobby-grade electronics. Strap on some explosives, add basic GPS guidance, and you've got a weapon system. The cost per drone, $1,000. Maybe $5,000 for a better one. Against a $13 billion carrier, the math becomes obscene. Here's why traditional defenses collapse. A Phalanx CIWS, that's the radar-guided Gatling gun you see on the back of destroyers, fires 4,500 rounds per minute. Sounds impressive until you do the math. Each 20mm round costs about $30. A 3-second burst to kill one drone costs about $7,000. And that's if you hit it on the first try. Now multiply that by 50 drones attacking simultaneously from different vectors. You run out of ammunition before they run out of drones. You run out of money before they run out of attacks. This is the problem that terrified the Pentagon. High-tech, expensive fleets being overwhelmed by low-tech, cheap swarms. It's asymmetric warfare perfected. But here's what most people don't understand. The Navy isn't trying to stop drones after they launch. They're not waiting for them to get close enough to shoot. The entire philosophy changed. Instead of reaction, it became prediction. Instead of expensive ammunition, it became layered defense. Instead of human speed, it became machine speed. The solution isn't one system. It's not one weapon. It's an interconnected web of sensors, algorithms, and directed energy that creates what's essentially an invisible wall around the ship, a wall that drones cannot penetrate. And it starts with something most people never think about: seeing the threat before it becomes a threat. Imagine you're standing in a field. Somewhere nearby, there's a beehive about to swarm. Your job? Spot every bee before it gets within stinging range. Sounds impossible, right? That's the Navy's drone problem. Because here's the brutal reality. Drones are small. A Mavic 3 quadcopter, a favorite of both hobbyists and hostile forces, has a radar cross-section roughly the size of a large bird. It can fly 3 meters above the waves, where ocean clutter makes radar tracking a nightmare. And it's made mostly of plastic and carbon fiber, so it barely reflects radio waves. Traditional ship radar? It's looking for steel hulls and missile bodies, not plastic toys. This is where layered detection becomes survival. The first layer is long-range surveillance radar. Think of it as the watchtower. Systems like the ANSPY-6 on newer destroyers can track hundreds of targets simultaneously at ranges exceeding 200 nautical miles. But they're designed for aircraft and missiles, not tiny drones hugging the surface. That's their weakness. So the Navy added a second layer, high-resolution passive sensors. These don't emit signals, they listen. Drones make noise. Electric motors hum, propellers buzz. Infrared cameras detect heat signatures from motors and batteries. Electro-optical systems use high-powered cameras with image recognition algorithms to spot movement patterns that don't match natural phenomena. Think of it like this. Radar asks, is something there? Passive sensors ask, what is it doing, and does it behave like a threat? But here's where it gets interesting. The third layer isn't on the ship at all. Navy MQ-9 Reaper drones and Fire Scout helicopters patrol beyond the ship's horizon, carrying their own sensor pods. They're spotting incoming threats 15 to 30 miles out, way before the ship's own systems could see them at wavetop altitude. These aerial sentries feed data directly into the ship's combat system in real time, through something called JADC2, Joint All-Domain Command and Control. Every sensor, whether on the ship, in the air, or on a nearby destroyer, is sharing information simultaneously. Suddenly, you don't have one set of eyes. You have dozens. But here's the problem. Even with all these sensors detecting potential threats, you're now drowning in data. A single Aegis destroyer might be tracking 200 contacts at any given moment. Commercial aircraft, fishing boats, flocks of seabirds, surface clutter, even weather phenomena. Somewhere in that noise are 3 actual hostile drones. How do you separate threat from clutter? You can't do it manually. Human operators would be overwhelmed in seconds. This is why detection alone doesn't win the fight. You need something else, something faster than human reaction time. Something that can process millions of data points per second and predict where the attack is coming from before the drones even reach striking distance. You need a ghost captain, an artificial intelligence that's fighting the battle in a parallel dimension while the crew prepares for what's coming. Here's the part that sounds like science fiction, but is operational right now. Inside every modern warship, there's a computer system running thousands of simulated battles simultaneously. While you're reading this sentence, these systems have already fought and won dozens of versions of the next engagement. They've tested every possible response, predicted every enemy move, and calculated the optimal defense strategy. Welcome to OCDSS, Optimized Cross-Domain Swarm Sensing. Developed by the Naval Air Warfare Center, OCDSS is essentially a genius tactician trapped in silicon. Feed it the sensor data. Here are 3 drones detected at heading 270, speed 50 miles per hour, altitude 10 meters, and it instantly spins up thousands of virtual scenarios. What if there are more drones we haven't detected yet? What if they split into multiple attack vectors? What if they're carrying different payloads? Raymond Kohler, the mechanical engineer who led OCDSS development, put it simply: the software quickly runs thousands of simulations to determine the most effective allocation of assets. It gives warfighters faster and more effective decision-making. That's competitive advantage. Let's break down what that actually means in a real engagement. Your Aegis system detects 4 small contacts at 20 miles. They're approaching at 100 knots, sea skimming. Human operators might spend 30 seconds confirming they're hostile, another minute deciding which defensive systems to activate, then coordinating engagement sequences. In drone warfare, that's an eternity. Those drones could cover 6 miles while you're still deciding. OCDSS does it in 3 seconds. It identifies the threats, cross-references their signatures with known hostile patterns, predicts their attack vectors using machine learning trained on thousands of previous encounters, calculates which defensive systems have the highest probability of kill, and automatically cues weapon systems for engagement. By the time a human operator confirms, yes, engage, the computer has already done 90% of the tactical thinking. Rear Admiral Todd Evans, who commands NOCAD, calls this the decisive edge. His exact words: Autonomy is the decisive edge for maritime dominance. Not bigger guns, not faster missiles. Decision speed. Because here's what people don't realize. The human brain is the bottleneck. A trained combat systems officer is exceptional at high-level strategy and complex decision-making. But ask that same officer to simultaneously track 50 fast-moving objects. Calculate intercept vectors for each one. Prioritize targets based on threat level and coordinate responses across multiple weapon systems. All in under 10 seconds, impossible. AI doesn't get overwhelmed. It doesn't experience decision fatigue. It doesn't need to sleep. When 50 drones attack from 5 different directions, the Ghost Captain is already fighting all 5 battles at once. But here's the crucial part most people miss. OCDSS doesn't fight alone. It's integrated into a broader network. Every sensor on every ship in the strike group feeds into a shared combat cloud. A destroyer 30 miles away detects a drone your ship hasn't seen yet. That data appears on your tactical display instantly. AP-8 Poseidon patrol aircraft spots a launch site on shore. The fleet knows immediately. This is JADC-2 in action, turning isolated ships into a networked fortress. And here's the really interesting part. By the time the actual engagement starts, the AI has already won. It's run the simulation 1,000 times. It knows the drones will approach in a V formation because that's how hostile forces trained for months. It knows 3 will veer left at 5 miles because that's the optimal attack pattern against an Aegis destroyer's defensive geometry. It's already positioned the ship's countermeasures before the enemy makes their move. You're not reacting to the attack, you're anticipating it. But anticipation doesn't stop drones. Detection and AI give you the knowledge and the plan. Now you need the weapon. Something fast enough to engage dozens of targets in seconds, cheap enough to fire thousands of rounds without bankrupting the Navy, and powerful enough to drop a drone instantly. Traditional guns and missiles can't do that. But light and electromagnetic energy, they're perfect. On a chilly morning off the California coast, a Navy destroyer faces something unprecedented. Multiple drone swarms incoming. Unmanned surface vessels speeding across the water with 40 to 90 horsepower outboard motors, mimicking Iranian fast attack boats. Overhead, dozens of quadcopters in coordinated patterns. 4 different classes of threats attacking simultaneously. This is the ANTX-CT trial, the Advanced Naval Technology Exercise, Coastal Trident. The ship doesn't fire a single conventional weapon. Instead, there's a high-pitched hum most humans can't hear, a brief electromagnetic pulse invisible to the naked eye. Then, nothing. Except every single drone and surface vessel goes dead. Engines stop mid-throttle. Circuits fry. Control systems brick. In one shot, the entire swarm is neutralized. Welcome to Leonidas H2O, the high-power microwave system that breaks the rules of swarm warfare. Here's how it works. Traditional weapons, bullets, missiles, even lasers engage targets, one at a time. You shoot one drone, then traverse to the next target, then engage again. Against a 50-drone swarm, you're fighting sequential battles. By the time you've killed 20, the other 30 have already closed the distance. Leonidas doesn't care about sequential. It broadcasts a focused cone of high-power microwave energy. Everything in that cone, whether it's one drone or 40 drones, gets hit simultaneously. The microwave pulse induces electrical currents in the drone's circuits. Those currents overload the flight controller, the motor drivers, the GPS receiver, the battery management system. It's like hitting every electronic component with a targeted lightning strike. The drone doesn't explode. It doesn't catch fire. It just stops working permanently. Wes O'Donnell, a defense analyst who covered the trials, called it a first-of-its-kind capability, simultaneously disabling multiple classes of unmanned systems. Drones fall from the sky. Surface vessels dead in the water. One shot, dozens of kills. But here's the beautiful asymmetry. That HPM shot cost approximately the same as running your microwave oven for 30 seconds. The electricity to generate the pulse. That's it. No $2 million missiles. No $75,000 guided shells. Just stored electrical energy discharged in microseconds. This is what the Navy calls the infinite magazine. As long as the ship has power, it has ammunition. Now meet Helios, high-energy laser with integrated optical dazzler and surveillance. Last year, aboard the USS Preble, an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, the Navy conducted a live counter-drone demonstration. 4 targets inbound. Lockheed Martin CEO Jim Teichlet described it during an earnings call. We successfully used the shipboard laser system to knock an incoming UAV right out of the sky. Actually, they knocked 4 out of the sky. Helios is a 60-kilowatt class laser integrated directly into the ship's Aegis combat system. The same sensors detecting drones for missiles now detect them for the laser. The targeting computer calculates intercept solutions. Then the laser fires. Here's what happens in those 3 seconds. The laser beam, invisible to human eyes, focuses on the drone's body. It's not like a movie where things instantly explode. Instead, the laser heats a small spot on the target to thousands of degrees in about 2 seconds. Carbon fiber begins to char. Plastic melts. Structural components fail. The drone either disintegrates mid-flight or loses control and tumbles into the ocean. For smaller drones, or ones at longer range where a hard kill isn't feasible, Helios can switch to dazzler mode. Instead of destroying the drone, it blinds its optical sensors with overwhelming light. The drone's camera sees nothing but white. GPS still works, but without visual confirmation, operators lose situational awareness. Many autonomous systems abort and return to launch point when they lose sensor input. Soft kill or hard kill. The laser chooses based on what the situation demands. And just like HPM, the cost per shot is negligible. A few dollars of electricity. That's the key to solving the asymmetry problem, making defense cheaper than offense. But here's the limitation people need to understand. Directed energy weapons aren't magic. Helios requires clear line of sight. Heavy fog, rain, or smoke can degrade effectiveness. The laser beam spreads over distance, reducing power density at extreme range. And while 60 kilowatts is powerful, it's not instantaneous. You need to hold the beam on target for 2 to 3 seconds. Against a single fast-moving drone, that's manageable. Against a saturation swarm where 50 drones attack within a 10-second window, you might get 15 to 20 before the others break through. That's why HPM and lasers work in tandem. Leonidas handles volume, the mass of targets attacking together. Helios handles precision, the fast movers that slip through or attack from unexpected vectors. And when directed energy isn't enough, that's when the Phalanx CIWS activates as the last-ditch defense. But the real innovation isn't any single weapon. It's the integration. Remember that Aegis combat system? It's not just managing radar and missiles anymore. It's orchestrating everything. Sensors feeding data to AI queuing weapon systems, HPM engaging clusters, lasers targeting individuals, electronic warfare jamming control signals. And yes, traditional guns as backup. All happening simultaneously, all coordinated by machine speed decision-making. During the ANTX trials, this integration was called cross-domain kill chains. A drone is detected by an airborne sensor, tracked by ship radar, identified as hostile by AI pattern recognition, prioritized by OCDSS simulation, and engaged by whichever directed energy system has the optimal firing solution. All in under 5 seconds from initial detection. The Navy isn't fighting the swarm. It's dismantling the swarm systematically before it becomes a swarm. And here's the statistic that should terrify potential adversaries. During recent classified exercises, integrated directed energy defenses achieved over 90% kill rates against simulated mass drone attacks. Not 50-50 odds, not 60-40. 9 out of 10 drones never reached their target. The question isn't, can the Navy stop drone swarms anymore? The question is, what happens next in this arms race? Here's the reality that keeps naval strategists honest. There is no silver bullet. The Center for a New American Security put it plainly in their Counter-Unmanned Aircraft Systems report. Layered defense requires a system of active defenses, characterized by multiple sensors and effectors, working in an integrated fashion. Strip away the jargon, and it means this: you need everything working together, because nothing works alone. Helios is remarkable, but it can't engage through weather. Leonidas has incredible volume coverage, but limited range. Aegis sensors are powerful, but they need support from passive systems and airborne assets. AI makes brilliant decisions, but only with accurate data. Every layer covers weaknesses in the others. This is actually how the Navy has always operated. Layered defense is the same philosophy behind carrier strike groups. Destroyers protect the carrier, submarines protect the surface ships, aircraft protect everyone from threats beyond the horizon. Drone defense just applies that philosophy to a different threat. But the layers are evolving faster than most people realize. Right now, as of early 2026, Leonidas H2O is transitioning from experimental trials to programs of record. That means moving from cool prototype to operational equipment on ships. Helios is already deployed on USS Preble, with plans to install improved versions on additional destroyers. OCDSS is scaling from demonstration to fleet-wide integration with Marine Corps unmanned teams. This isn't 20 years in the future. It's happening now. Within 3 years, the Navy expects to have directed energy weapons as standard point defense on major surface combatants. Rear Admiral Goals leaked in internal documents talk about directed energy as the first engagement option for line-of-sight threats. Traditional missiles become the backup, not the primary response. The cost implications are staggering. A single destroyer carries approximately 90 vertical launch cells for missiles. Each cell costs millions to fill. With directed energy, that destroyer essentially has unlimited ammunition, as long as it has fuel for generators. The tactical flexibility changes everything. You can engage targets aggressively because you're not rationing limited missiles. But adversaries aren't standing still either. The arms race is already adapting. Anti-radiation coatings to reduce HPM effectiveness. Swarming algorithms that coordinate attacks to overwhelm even layered defenses. Decoy drones that mimic real threats to waste laser shots. Electronic warfare to jam communications between networked sensors. This is why the Navy is already thinking 2 steps ahead. The next evolution isn't just stopping drones. It's using drones to stop drones. Imagine this. Your sensors detect an incoming swarm at 30 miles. Instead of waiting for them to get close, you launch your own drone swarm, autonomous interceptors that fly out to engage the enemy drones beyond weapon range of the ship. Defensive drones with onboard HPM or small kinetic interceptors. Let the machines fight the machines while the ship stays safe. It sounds like science fiction, but the technology already exists. Those MQ-9 Reapers and Fire Scouts doing surveillance, they're test beds for offensive payloads. Small autonomous interceptor drones are in development right now at NOCAD. By 2030, defensive swarms could be standard equipment on carriers. The vision is integrated air and missile defense that creates a bubble around the strike group. Nothing gets within 10 miles without being identified, tracked, and eliminated by autonomous systems. Human operators supervise, but they don't execute. The machines handle the speed of light warfare while humans focus on strategy. Here's the part that matters most. This isn't about making ships invulnerable. That's impossible. This is about making attacks so costly and ineffective that adversaries don't attempt them. When you know that 90% of your drones will be destroyed before they reach the target, and the remaining 10% face additional layers of defense, the calculus changes. Swarms stop being an attractive option. That's the real victory. Deterrence through demonstrated capability. And the Navy is making sure potential adversaries know exactly what they're up against. These aren't classified programs hidden in black budgets. ANTX trials are publicly disclosed. Helios demonstrations get announced in earnings calls. The message is deliberate. We've solved this problem. Don't bother trying. But the technology only matters if the people operating it understand it, trust it, and can adapt when something unexpected happens. That's why sailor training is evolving as fast as the hardware. Combat systems operators are learning to work alongside AI, to recognize when the ghost captain needs human judgment, and when to trust machine speed over human intuition. Because here's the truth that doesn't change no matter how advanced the technology gets. At the center of every system, in every combat information center, there's a human being making the final decision. The AI can recommend. The sensors can detect, the weapons can fire, but the call to engage, that belongs to the crew, and they're ready. From the sensor operators monitoring screens in darkened combat information centers, to the chiefs maintaining directed energy systems in below-deck magazines, to the commanders on the bridge weighing split-second tactical decisions. They've trained for this. They've run the simulations. They've seen the trials. They know the layered defense works because they've made it work. This is how the Navy stops drone swarms before they get close. Not with one miracle weapon, not with brute force, but with integrated sensors seeing everything, artificial intelligence thinking faster than any human, and directed energy weapons engaging cheaper than any missile. Layer upon layer upon layer, each one compensating for the other's limitations, all working together to create something no enemy has yet defeated. The $13 billion carrier, with 5,000 crew and 90 aircraft, can now be protected from $1,000 drones. The math finally works in the defender's favor. And somewhere off the coast of California, in the Red Sea, in the Pacific Fleet exercises, that layered defense is operating right now. Invisible to most, unknown to many, but absolutely essential to maritime dominance in an age where the biggest threats sometimes come in the smallest packages. The swarms keep coming, the defenses keep evolving, and the Navy keeps adapting, because that's what naval power has always meant. Not the ability to win yesterday's fight, but the readiness to win tomorrow's.